This is Matt Lopon. You're watching Mississippi Live weather at 10 on what has been kind of a cloudy sort of day. We've had a few sprinkles, not a lot of activity as we talked about last night, earlier today, last couple days. Things a little out of phase for storms. I do expect we'll have more that try to develop overnight, but as far as severe weather goes, thankfully, we have missed out, though some in the region, especially up into Tennessee, have had more issues. One of the things that we do have is the potential for some dense fog overnight. We have not seen much on our cameras yet. We'll show the locations under that dense fog advisory here in a minute. Okay, but a moisture is going to sweep all this. Front's going to sweep all this moisture away. It's just going to take until probably late tomorrow for that to end up happening. We'll look at that coming up here in a couple minutes. And wind chills near the teens in the head. In fact, we could be mid-teens out there. Yeah, because that's what we're up against going forward. So looking ahead toward that coming up here in just a couple of minutes as we look ahead toward the forecast for the next couple of days. But outside right now at this instant, again, our first 12 showing us that forecast over the course of the next couple hours here. And limited rain chances still there as we go into the overnight hours. We're saying only around 20% or so for that rain coverage, with, again, some isolated sprinkles continuing into tomorrow. 20% might be a little bit high, but in general, the takeaway, two of these. Number one, don't expect a lot of meaningful moisture out of this. It's more nuisance rainfall, which, yes, could possibly impact some of your outdoor plans, including maybe some of the area SEC football games. Talking about that more in detail here in a minute. But also, this is as warm as we're going to be for low temperatures for quite a while. So it's a mild beginning to the day, and that correlates well with this. Dense fog advisories that have been issued for really northern half of the area. Memphis, National Weather Service pretty much issuing it for all of their counties here. We're north of this front, and the first of these, it just hasn't really moved much, has a lot of moisture. It's kind of pooling near it, fairly calm winds. That's kind of a combination where we do tend to see some dense fog. So that's probably going to extend your driving times looking toward tomorrow morning in particular. But right now, I still have decent visibility, and we're up, a few hundred feet above the ground here at our Pontotoc camera location. 66 current temperature there in Pontotoc County, just a little bit south of the city. I'm going to check a couple other cameras here on our Skycam too. We're going to go to the Mississippi Department of Transportation cameras there in South Tillow. Looking at this one here, it's going down toward the roads. I mean, I still look like I have good visibility there, 66 temperature, but those calm winds, one of the things helping out to possibly patch that fog around. And Sherman, again, looks like we have great visibility still there as well, 66 the temperature at that location. Then Batesville coming in at this instant with 59, so a little bit cooler. And again, up a couple hundred feet above the surface, 100 feet or so above the surface, we still have great visibility looking out toward the horizon. So I don't have any of that dense fog at this point. Expectation is we could have some of that develops overnight with calm winds, fairly high levels of moisture near this frontal boundary that's kind of oozed through the area. Looking at Mississippi Live weather radar at this instant, we do have, again, cancellation of the tornado watch up to the north over the last hour or so. As we talked about the last couple of days, we've had some showers kind of developing in our area, but none that have really truly kind of gotten overly impressive in it. Let's come in a little closer here. Again, showing some of those showers out here near Red Bay, moving toward Littleville there, north of Russellville. But again, you notice there's just kind of a spark point here where these are kind of developing northern Itawamba County, closer to South Tillow there. So not impossible. Something a little heavier develops, but we are not anticipating severe weather out of anything that could try to develop over the course of the overnight hours. But don't be shocked to hear some rumbles, because I could still see lightly there depicted from Greenwood back toward Bruce there, just this same zone where storms, or showers at least, are trying to develop. That's along that front that sits overhead here. And so that front just is kind of running out of juice as it kind of moves into the area. High pressure behind this just isn't that much drier or that much cooler, but the one behind that is both. And it is going to bring a big, big blast of colder air. This one up here toward Denver, Colorado, that is the one that is definitely going to be impactful. Let's go ahead and look at temperatures here just to give you kind of an idea. Back behind it, this temperatures, really the coldest stuff is all the way up here in Canada, right? And so this is what will eventually start working its way down toward us. I mean, you can see that's a single-digit temperatures up there toward Winnipeg, Canada, associated with that. even into the northern plains, we're in the 30s and 20s for afternoon temperatures. So that big batch of colder air will slide toward us, and that is a huge part of the weather story. But look at the dew point, that measure of moisture. In the nearer term, maybe the bigger deal, because this will sweep the moisture out. We had that moisture. We talked last day or so about how we had kind of just-in-time moisture. If we were going to see severe weather, it was going to arrive just in time. Well, luckily it was out of sync and did not arrive just in time for us, despite the fact that locations up there in the Tennessee did have some reports, as you could see there, of some wind damage, hail, things of that nature. We have largely missed out on that, which I don't think anybody would say is a negative factor there. So as we look ahead here at Futurecast over the course of the overnight hours, still potentially seeing some isolated showers and storms developing along this boundary, but the more active weather out there into Alabama, back out into, by that point, by 3 o'clock in the morning, out there toward the Carolinas. So for us, just marginal amounts of moisture, some isolated showers. But you might see how that front almost kind of sags back to the north, slides back to the north. So we wipe that off the map here because there's really not a lot of lift associated with that, but we're left with this cloud cover. And again, that's where that fog could be an issue during the overnight hours. So as we head into early tomorrow morning, still some isolated showers depicted there closer to the Golden Triangle, back out there toward Birmingham, hopefully clearing out by noontime. Hopefully that means good things, dry things for the Mississippi State game, but obviously tailgating, maybe some sprinkles still around. But this big front here is the huge story, much drier air and a big drop in temperatures associated with that. You don't really see that as we look at the next 24 hours here. We're 58 for that morning temperature, and this is about as warm as we're going to get for a while. We'll say mid-70s with a few 80s out there. We'll see that city by city on that forecast in a minute. But rain chances remain very, very limited. I think that next front, though, starts pushing in. That's why we keep the littlest of chances later in the day, because until that really shoves the moisture out of here, we haven't eliminated those chances completely. And that is going to be one of the stories going forward, is just how limited those rain chances are looking into next week. That's one of the things we're looking at here coming up in 60 seconds. We're also looking ahead toward what is going to be just a major drop in temperatures. You want to see the latest on those updated wind chills. Cold? I'm not saying that's an understatement, but that is definitely a part of the story we're looking at as Mississippi Live Weather at 10 continues from the Room to Room Weather Center right after this.
When you've been injured, don't settle for a lawyer who doesn't even know where you live. Call Langston and Lott. Local lawyers, personal service, real results.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
We're all just trying to keep things running for those who rely on us. That's why we don't have time to be sick with the flu.
We don't have time for delays.
Ready! We don't have time for spills. Next.
We don't have time for setbacks. Let's be real.
Getting the flu shot
Helps you fight the flu.
Get a flu shot for yourself and those around you, too.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lovhawn.
Well, live in Adenton this evening. Thanks for joining us here on Mississippi Live Weather. Some isolated, kind of puffier sort of clouds showing up on this camera location there. And the reason for that is we anticipate that we're probably going to end up seeing, again, a few isolated showers overnight that do develop as this weak front kind of slides through. That's about as much vertical development as I've had on any camera during the overnight period that we've watched so far this evening. Outside in Kosciuszko right now, showing up dark. That temperature 63 at Adenton, but it's coming in 63 there in Kosciuszko as well. Some patchy fog, not an impossibility, some spots overnight, but not showing any there down in Attala County. Good evening to you. We're checking out Macon as well, as we're kind of watching this zone down here south of the Golden Triangle. See a little bit more vertical development in these clouds than what we had for much of the earlier afternoon. Still, dew point at 64 is not super high. And it's possible that this, again, settles down and we end up getting a little bit of dense fog as a possibility overnight. Let's see. Let's check out one more of these candles. Let's check out West Point here. Haven't seen West Point today. And for all y'all in Clay County, good to see you this evening as we're 63 degrees. And that dew point a little bit lower there. Again, that contrast partially because of that front in areas. We look at the latest here on Mississippi Live Weather Radar. We've kind of trimmed things a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of play with our color tables. Give me a second. I'm trying to kind of clear off a lot of those clear air returns, but I'm still trying to see. Give me a moment if I can just sort of put that on there, if you could see some of those showers developing. So we're going to have, again, some false returns on here, but we're also going to see some of those little showers that have kind of developed there. That does a better job of showing that for you. So still showing, again, some of these sprinkles out here, Red Bay, back toward Littleville, Alabama there, north of Russellville. We said it off top, and you say it again, no severe weather risk out of any of this overnight, but there could potentially be a few rumbles. Right there. You can kind of see there's one of the waves that kind of indicates that stalling front there that we do see just a little bit past the radar site. A couple isolated showers back toward around Houston and a couple back out there closer to Winona as well. But these obviously are all relatively weak and fairly small and likely to stay that way as we go into the overnight hours. But there is this zone down here still developing some thunderstorms back there toward Tuscaloosa. That's what makes me interested in that Macon camera and the camera at 8 to 10 because it's still possible as that front just slowly heads down here that kind of slaps together and we have a few more showers and maybe some rumbles that are developing during the overnight time period. Right now, as we look at our forecast over the course of the weekend, big contrast is one of the big headlines here. 76 that temperature, as you can see there, for a high on Saturday, but only 56 Sunday, and it might not ever feel that warm. It is going to be kind of a cool day, and that might be an understatement because when you factor in that north wind at 10 to 15 miles per hour, wind chill temperatures might not ever exit the 40s for where you're at. We'll look city by city at those temperatures coming up here in a couple minutes, but cooler temperatures are one of the big stories going forward. So as we look here across the region, you can see Futurecast overdoing the rain coverage just the littlest bit for what we have out there, but it's pretty close on where that boundary is at this point in time. And so just in case we have any rumbles overnight, just want to remind you that weather call is one of those things that if for whatever reason something got a little rough, it'll let you know if you're in the danger zone. There is that charge, and we do appreciate all the folks that have subscribed that over the years, about 10,000 around this part of the state total. If you subscribed at the old place, somebody else's voice now to get my voice, and also alerts when we talk about major flash flooding there and a few other things related to this, including some lightning alerts. You have to subscribe through us here at Mississippi Live Weather. It is probably some of the best money that I spend for my family every year is making sure that they have weather call because it definitely brings me peace of mind. So I don't have to worry about my family know that they're in the danger zone. Nope. We can make sure of that because they have weather call. Okay, so back to where we're at overnight. And again, we don't expect to have a lot of real issues with that, but you will notice some bits of yellow that do develop on some of our showers here. So that's where a couple of rumbles come in. And where weather call is important in this, just to swing back that for just a second, is if you don't get the phone call, you know you're not in a situation you need to worry about. So you hear rumbles, just roll back over and go back to sleep. Of course, the Mississippi Live Weather app, good to just pick it up and see that as well. It does have alerts. It's just sometimes alerts get blocked by do not disturbs, things like that. At least I know mine do from time to time, even on my own app. So that's why weather call is still important. Anyway, overnight, you see a couple of those little bursts of orange showing up on there, a sign that near where that boundary is and closer to where we're looking, Adaton and Starkville and Columbus and around the Golden Triangle down toward Louisville, not impossible to have a couple of those rumbles overnight near that boundary there. Low temperatures tomorrow morning, 54 Water Valley. I mean, again, this is way above our normal for this time of year and way above where we'll be anytime soon as far as temperatures go, around 60 Belzona and Greenwood, Aliceville 60, 58 in Macon, 59 Columbus, and 57 for Vernon, 57 also for Tupelo and Amory. Again, way above the 44 we expect for this time of year, which is going to be way warmer than a lot of what we have going forward beyond that. Now, looking at the very latest version of our HRRR model here on Futurecast, that's what powers this here, you'll notice that this is a little bit heavier, 7:38 in the morning. I think this, again, probably overdone slightly, but a sign that, again, a few rumbles possible with what we see early in the day on your Saturday. But also notice some of those showers, 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, still a possibility to have some of those around possibly near the Golden Triangle, out into Alabama. At that point, we'll look at that SEC football forecast for the Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Alabama games coming up here in just a couple of moments. But most of those showers to the east of us as we go through the day. So that dense fog, we expect that overnight should hopefully break up fairly quickly in some spots as we go throughout the overnight hours. And then as we're looking there toward the afternoon tomorrow, relatively dry, but not 100%. Interested to see how this kind of little moisture, a couple of showers. And the time of day here, you can see 6:30 p.m. Not impossible if that secondary front kicks out, maybe a couple isolated showers. I mean, 20% is probably overdoing it there, but certainly not an impossibility with temperatures dropping into the 60s as we progress into that game. For the Mississippi State-Georgia game, 11 a.m. kick, and again, not impossible to have a rogue shower, especially in the pregame time period there. Hopefully clearing out as we go through. Maybe that sunshine helps out the temperatures. We expect by the final snap of that game, probably mid-70s. So in the stadium, probably more like mid-80s. So a little warm still. We're not the full-on, sweater territory, but we are actually practically at the end of the season. So there you go there. And then Ole Miss, noontime kickoff there, more likely to have a little bit more sunshine there. Mid-70s halftime temperature as well as final snap on some relatively light wind and things dry for that forecast representing CC. Then behind this front, again, made sprinkles showing up out there. That's there for Tuscaloosa, maybe impacting the game. So not an impossibility, and maybe one or two beyond that late in the evening. But after that, it is drier air settling in. And notice these arrows. They represent the strong winds. You can see them really picking up. I want just for contrast purposes, it's hard to see here because of all the gray that you see, but you will notice that all those arrows moving really quick out of the north and west on the backside of this, and that's really going to help those temperatures to drop in a big, big way. By Sunday morning, we're at midnight, and we're not going to warm up from there. So as we progress throughout your Sunday, again, keeping it mostly dry, mostly clear, and if I take a slightly wider shot here, you will also notice that there's a little blue up to the north and west of us there. That would represent on our scale snow. Don't get too excited. But I will say this, and this is one of those fun facts I love telling the kids when we go to school visits. This is a scenario where it's not impossible that it is snowing a mile away from your house, but that mile is up into the sky. And all of that melts before it gets to the surface because we're too warm down here. But I always love that. That's one of the things I'm like, hey, so here's one way to trick your parents. You tell them, hey, I can go 2 miles away from here and it's below freezing. It's middle of summer. It's like, where do you go? You go straight up 2 miles. It gets colder there. And so in that case, there will be some flakes with this. I think just the mainly melts before it gets to the surface. Most of that more meaningful moisture is up to the north of us. But this is just a huge area of high pressure, just pushing in what is going to be a ton of colder and drier air. As we settle into next week, it is going to make sure that it is downright chilly. So as far as high temperatures on Sunday are concerned, they are deceiving. While we show maybe 60 Kosciuszko or Belzona, or 59 there in Greenwood, you factor in the cool winds and it never feels this warm. You will probably go into church at a temperature that's fairly cool and come out maybe a little bit chillier because the cold air is still spilling in as we go throughout your Sunday night. So that makes wind chill temperatures kind of the critical number here. So as we're looking at this wind chill temperatures, we're looking at low 40s for those temperatures here in the early part of Sunday morning. And this is what I'm kind of mean there. Watch Tupelo, for example, at 40 degrees. As we go toward around noontime and in the afternoon, we might briefly touch the low 50s. And then by 3 p.m., we're back there into the 30s. And then overnight, it gets cold in a big, big way. This is 8:30 p.m. on your Sunday evening. And again, low 20s already showing up there. Boonville back toward Corinth and Iuka and Holly Springs. Even some upper 20s there for Greenwood. Back toward around Belzona and Greenville. Early morning on Monday, again, the winds is still breezy enough. Actual temperatures probably upper 20s. So cold enough that we're freezing, maybe not the dripping territory for the faucets yet, but we're going to be below freezing. And wind chill temperatures, what it feels like to expose skin. We're looking at 16 there in Bruce, 17 in Houston, 16 in Boonville. And as the kids are getting ready to go out the door early morning on your Monday, we're talking low 20s for those wind chill temperatures in and around Tupelo and Amory. As we go throughout your Monday by noontime, best case scenario. See how fast these arrows are coming in from the north and west. It's going to remain breezy, and that means wind chills will remain cool, down only upper 20s up here in the far northeast part of the state. We're 33 in Tupelo, 32 degrees Bruce, Houston, 31 for what it'll feel like there in Eupora. And this is kind of best case scenario. By afternoon, maybe low 30s. And that means with winds finally calming down some, temperatures drop more for early Tuesday morning. I think we have some low 20s out there for some spots, mid 20s for others, and wind chills that are going to be in the teens once again, but there's just not as big a difference between the actual temperature and the wind chill, as wind should be somewhat calmer. And you can see the first signs of a little bit of relief from this cold. The fact that that wind direction has shifted more out of the south. That starts setting us up for a bit of a warm-up into next week, but a warm-up is a relative term because we're not getting as warm as we were for today and will be for tomorrow. Here's a look at that 7-day forecast, and here's your evidence. From 76, very mild on your Saturday, to 57 by Sunday, 46 as we look toward Monday under mostly clear skies. That again helps that temperature drop into the upper 20s and wind chills into the mid and in some cases lower teens. It's going to be really cold for the kids heading out early Monday morning. 26 for Tuesday morning for that actual temperature. Wind chills again around 20, if not below that. 56 by Tuesday. And then warming trend picks up a little bit more as we head toward Wednesday, about 66, 69 by Thursday. We're back in the 70s by Friday. Canada really empties out its colder air with this. As a result, looking more at the extended forecast, we do warm up a bit more then. But I think next rain chances beyond what tries to form overnight and what potentially late of that activity. So we still have quite a ways away before that is the case. I want to, of course, remind you that if you are watching us here on Mississippi Live and you're watching us on, say, Facebook, as I know a lot of folks do, we do have an app available for you to download, which, of course, ad supported. It is free and available for all of your different devices. We also have a Roku app. We haven't talked a ton about that, but we do have about 13,000 folks with that Roku app. Download it there if you want to see it on the traditional screen. That's a great way to you stay ahead of the weather. And of course, our next live broadcast is going to be coming up on your Saturday at 6 p.m. We do have recorded weathercasts and updates on the Mississippi Live Weather Channel throughout the day, so you can keep up with the latest there. As far as that is concerned, here in the Room to Room Weather Center, we'll be here at 6 and 10 p.m. And before we go, I'm going to bring it back in here again for a moment. Do have a couple of questions coming in. Some folks asking about the weather, if we have any bad weather coming into the Delta or any other locations. Let's look at Mississippi Live Weather Radar here for a moment to kind of check that out. And just kind of looking at the latest here, I don't see anything of significance out there, and we don't expect we're going to really see much of significance. Severe weather is primarily going to be to the north and east of us, or east of us as far as tonight is concerned. Here in Mississippi, we are good to go, and we do not have any issues. But I did want to show the evidence there related to the latest on those radar scans. Appreciate Judy for watching there in Iuka, Grenada, out for Cumberland, and out in the Delta as well. So someone saying none to track. Everyone could have played football tonight. You're absolutely right, Ricky. Well, most of us could have. So let's talk about that for a second here, because I was getting phone calls. I actually woke up on Monday morning to a coach saying, hey, do we need to move our game from Friday to Thursday? That was something I didn't think of on a Monday. So let's talk about how those decisions are made. First off, that's not a decision that we make here. That was clearly something that they knew getting into the day. So let's talk about this. When this risk area comes out, this is an arm of the government, the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, puts out these severe weather risks. And, we sometimes adjust them one direction or another. We've talked most of the week how we just weren't convinced. Not everything was lined up. We had some questions about how this would play out. And we talked about how there were stronger winds aloft north, more fuel south, and maybe we'd line up in the sweet spot. And that's the way the things worked out. But when you are a planner who has to move between hundreds and thousands of people around, you have to make choices based on the plausible worst case scenario and trying to make sure you have the path of least regret. So the worst case scenario is now we can't play a game on Friday and we have teams here. Now we got to play on Saturday. So out of an abundance of caution, a lot of schools moved their games up to Thursday night instead of Friday, including our game of the week, which was held there in Oxford, between Oxford and Starkville. And congratulations to Oxford for winning that matchup, going to think 9-1 now. But anyway, that's the reason why a lot of folks moved, is it's just better to move it and go, well, nothing happened, than to not move it and go, well, now we have people here for 7 hours trying to finish the game. We got to finish it on Saturday with playoff implications. No one wanted to do that. But yeah, I agree with you there, Ricky. None to track, and we could have games tonight. But I think talk to a lot of administrators about how they make those choices. Kind of makes sense why they do that. But certainly I understand how that is frustrating to folks for sure. Okay, so with that in mind, up here, appreciate watching us here on Miss. We'll see you back tomorrow. Subscribe, all things. It certainly helps us out to keep the lights on here. We'll see you soon.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.